The air thickens. It begins as a fine dust, a whisper from the sky that settles on fur and stone, barely noticeable amidst the daily rhythms of prehistoric life. Then, it grows, a silent, relentless snowfall of grey, so fine it slips through every crevice, coating the world in a shroud of pulverized rock. The scent of ozone and distant fire, a faint, metallic tang, now dominates the valley air. The sun, once a comforting disk in the heavens, fades to a dim, bruised orange, then to an ethereal, sickly yellow, before vanishing entirely behind an impenetrable curtain. This is not night. This is something far more profound. A darkness that feels like an internal lake. The clan, perhaps 2,000 ancient humans, huddles deeper within the mouth of their usual rock shelter. Outside, the familiar cries of birds have ceased. The rustle of wind through trees is muffled by the accumulating ash. It piles on edges, softens the sharp edges of rocks, and transforms the very ground into a treacherous, shifting blanket. The youngest, a toddler still clinging to his mother's leg, coughs, a dry, rattling sound, others follow, a collective rasping that underscores the growing terror. Breathing becomes an effort, each inhalation a grit-minus-filled struggle. They had known storms, blizzards that buried the land in white, but this is different. This is a storm that steals the light, that chokes the breath, that strips the world of its familiar contours and sounds. Panic, a cold dread, begins to seep into the silence. The hunter, "You okay?" usually fearless, presses his hand against the cave wall, its familiar coolness now dusted with the omnipresent grey. He cannot see beyond a few paces. The ash falls to dense, the darkness to absolute. The large miners bodied Pleistocene megafauna, usually a predictable source of sustenance, are nowhere to be heard. Their tracks, once imprinted sharply in the moist earth, are now indistinct smudges under the accumulating powder. What few had ventured out in the initial hours returned, their coats heavy, eyes wide with a confusion that mirrors the clan's own. The river, their lifeblood, flows with a new, unsettling sluggishness, its surface a swirling morass of grey particulate. The water, when tasted, holds a bitter, metallic tang that makes the tongue curl. By hard choice emerges, unspoken but universally understood. Stay in the familiar, suffocating valley, or venture into an unrecognizable world for breath and drink. They move as one, a decision made not through words, but through the instinctual understanding that survival lies not in waiting for the light to return, but in seeking it. The elders, though slow and coughing, set a determined pace, their knowledge of the land, however obscured, guiding them. The younger, stronger members take turns carrying the children, their faces grim, mouths covered with scraps of hide against the choking dust. This isn't just about escaping the immediate danger. It's about confronting the ultimate primal fear. The fear of a world irrevocably broken. A world where the sun has been extinguished, and every familiar landmark, every source of comfort, has been swallowed by the grey. The very fabric of their community, built on shared knowledge and predictable cycles, begins to fray under the relentless, choking reality. The path is a torment. Days bleed into one another, marked only by the shifting density of the ash fall and the deepening ache in their bellies. The world has been reduced to shades of grey and the rasp of their own breathing. A thin, acidic drizzle begins to fall, not the life minus giving reign of their memory, but a biting mist that stings the eyes and leaves welts on exposed skin. They learn to huddle under overhangs, their fur cloaks pulled tight, waiting for the skies weeping to cease. Thirst becomes a constant, gnawing presence. Every stream they find is a slurry of poison, forcing them to lick moisture from the undersides of clean minus-looking stones. A meager, desperate act that only sharpens the pangs of dehydration. The familiar landscape, the mental map of their territory etched by generations, is useless in this new, hostile paleo environment. Their expertise in creating ancient tools, a cornerstone of their survival skills, feels almost mocking now. What good is a perfectly sharpened flint spear when there is no game to hunt? The silence of the world is the most unnerving predator. No bird song, no distant roar of a cave lion, just the whisper of falling ash in the wet, hacking costs that pass between them. One of the elders, a man whose hands had shaped countless moves tearing points, simply sits down during a brief pause and does not rise again. There is no ceremony. They lack the strength. They take his scraper from his belt, touch his shoulder in a silent farewell, and walk on, leaving him to be slowly buried by the grey snow. This is the new reality, a brutal arithmetic of survival. Then, a flicker of hope that quickly curdles into conflict. Stumbling through a skeletal forest, they find it. A young ibex, dead but not scavenged, likely a victim of the poisoned water. Its body is a godsend, a miracle of protein in a starving world. But, as the lead hunter, Kale, draws his flint flake to begin the butchering, the old matriarch, Manoth, raises a hand. Her gesture is weak, but her eyes are sharp with a lifetime of accumulated wisdom. She points to the animal's bloated stomach, then to the grey-minus-film stream nearby. The meat is a wrist. She communicates through signs and guttural clicks. Potential poison that could finish them all. This is the critical intelligence point. A moment of foresight clashing with immediate, desperate need. The clan divides. Kale and the younger hunters, their bodies wasting away, see only sustenance. Their hunger is a roaring fire that eclipses all caution. The older members, including the mother of the small child, see honor's wisdom. They see not just a meal, but a potential end. The argument is not loud. It is a tense, bitter series of gestures and hushed, strained vocalizations. It is the breaking point. Kale makes the hard choice born of desperation. He and other hunters cove off a haunch of the ibex. Their movements swift and defying. They do not share. It is a profound violation of the unspoken laws that have governed their hominid history. The rest of the clan watches, their hunger warring with their fear, as the small group retreats to a distance to cook the meat over a sputtering, smoky fire. The social bond, stretched thin by a hostile world, has finally snapped. The schism does not bring strength. Within hours, the hunters who ate the tainted meat are racked with violent convulsions, their bodies purged by a poison they could not see. Kale, their leader, lies gasping on the ashen ground, his bravado replaced by a child's bewildered fear. The others, the smaller group who heeded honor's wisdom, can only watch from a distance. There is no triumph, only a hollow, aching sorrow. They leave them to their fate, another brutal calculation in the new calculus of this prehistoric life. The world has become too harsh for pity to outweigh the imperative of movement. They turn and continue their ascent, a ghost of a clan, haunted by the choices that heaven made them. The climb toward the high ridges is a silent, vertical agony. The thin air tears at their lungs, already rough in the ash. Each footstep is a conscious effort, a victory against the gravity that seeks to pull them back into the suffocating grey blanket below. But with altitude comes a subtle change. The wind, a constant, scouring force at this height, begins to thin the perpetual gloom. Patches of rock, swept clean by the gales, appear like islands in a grey sea. The ashfall is lighter here, more adust than a suffocating blanket. And then, a discovery that feels like a resurrection. A deep fissure in the rock, from which a tiny, clear trickle of water weeps. It is the first clean water they have tasted since the sky fell. They drink, not with greed, but with a ritualistic reverence, letting the cold, pure liquid soothe their parched throats. This wind-minus blasted ridge is their sanctuary. It is not a home, but a perch above the apocalypse. Here, they can breathe. Here, they can drink. But the attrition has taken its toll, and no, the matriarch is fading. The climb has consumed the last of her reserves. She leans against a rock, her breathing a shallow flutter. She watches Mara, the young mother, try to quiet her child, whose own coughs are weak and persistent. The future of their line, the entire purpose of their agonizing journey, is condensed into that one small, struggling phone, and Noah makes her final choice. This is the deep, instinctual logic of human evolution, the invisible hand of kin selection that prioritizes the vessel of the future over the vessel of the past. From a small pouch tied to her waist, she produces an all, dried root and a handful of preserved berries, a final, secret cache saved with a foresight that bordered on prophecy. She does not offer it. She presses it into Mora's hand, her grip surprisingly firm, her eyes locking onto the younger woman's. The gesture is a transfer of legacy, a silent command to live. Mara understands. Tears mix with the grime on her face as she accepts the gift, and Noa then pushes herself away, moving to a sheltered ledge overlooking the ruined world. She curls into herself, a small, still from against the vast, grey emptiness. The remaining few give her the dignity of a private hand. In the quiet of the high ridge, as the wind whispers over the stone, Mara carefully crushes a berry and touches it to her child's lips. The coughing softens. A fragile ember, purchased with the ultimate sacrifice, is coaxed back from the darkness. They have endured, but the clan is gone. All that remains is a promise, as thin and as precious as the air they now breathe. We pull back from the lonely ridge, the figures of the mother and child shrinking until they are indistinguishable from the stone. The ash continues to fall on the world below, a geologic punctuation mark on a chapter of life. Their story is not one of victory, but of a continuity so fragile it is nearly invisible. Yet, it is in this act, this quiet, uncelebrated sacrifice, that we find the bedrock of our own species. This is not merely a tale from our hominid history. It is the source code, the capacity for foresight, the strength of the social bond, and the profound, instinctual drive to protect the future at the cost of the present became the most crucial of all survival skills. Their struggle, etched into the deep time recorded by archaeology, reveals that our dominance was not forged in the strength of individuals, but in the willingness of one to suffer for the many. We carry the ghost of honest choice within us. It is the quiet voice that urges cooperation, the unease we feel at selfishness, the primal instinct to shield a child from harm. Their apocalypse is long past, but the question it poses echoes in our own time. In a world of plenty, have we forgotten the brutal lessons learned in a world of ash? This is the chronicler, marking the cost of the dawn. What is remembered when the stones themselves forget?